Money does not run away from you because it is evil or because you were not chosen to have it. Money runs away because it does not trust your character. And I say that to you as someone who once believed that intelligence alone would make me prosperous, as someone who sat at a polished table with contracts worth more than my parents had earned in their entire lives and still felt the quiet panic of a man who had built fast, but not built deep. Let me tell you something. Wealth is not attracted to desire. It is attracted to structure. When I was younger, I thought the problem was opportunity. I blamed the market, I blamed the economy, I even blamed people who had more than I did. I told myself that if I could just close one large deal, everything would change. And then I did close that deal. The numbers hit my account, and for a brief moment I felt powerful. But within a year, most of that money was gone, not because of tragedy, not because of betrayal, but because I lacked the internal discipline to hold what I had attracted. I invested emotionally. I expanded impulsively. I said yes to projects that fed my ego instead of my principles. I learned this the hard way. Wealth reveals who you already are. If you are disorganized, it will amplify your chaos. If you are insecure, it will magnify your fear. If you lack boundaries, it will expose your weakness. Listen carefully. The fatal mistake that pushes wealth away is not ignorance of strategy. It is the absence of character strong enough to sustain strategy. You want to prosper, or you just want to appear busy. You want peace, or you want to prove that you are right. You want legacy, or you want applause. These questions are not poetic. They are diagnostic. Every financial decision you make answers them. I have negotiated with investors who spoke about vision but could not control their temper in a simple conversation. I have watched entrepreneurs destroy partnerships because their pride was louder than their patience. Spiritual immaturity is expensive. Emotional instability is costly. The market does not punish you out of cruelty. It simply reflects you. When I began studying sacred texts more seriously, not as a ritual, but as a discipline of mind, I discovered something that changed the way I handled money. Prosperity is a covenant between responsibility and time. It is like planting a vineyard. You do not scream at the soil because grapes are not visible after a week. You prepare the ground. You water consistently. You protect the roots. In business, I had been planting seeds and digging them up every month to check if they were growing. I had no patience. I confused movement with progress. I confused noise with productivity. The fatal mistake that pushes wealth away is emotional urgency, the need to feel significant today at the expense of being stable tomorrow. I remember a particular negotiation that still humbles me. A respected partner offered me a smaller share in a long-term venture. My ego resisted. I wanted control. I wanted the larger percentage. I walked away. Within 3 years, that venture multiplied in value many times over. My pride had cost me more than any market downturn ever did. If I had understood this earlier, I would have chosen partnership over dominance. I would have chosen sustainability over immediate validation. Discipline above emotion. That is not a slogan. It is survival. Many people pray for prosperity but refuse to adopt the habits that make prosperity feel safe around them. Yes, I said safe. Money seeks stability. Investors seek reliability. Clients seek consistency. If your word changes with your mood, why would capital stay with you? If your spending reflects your impulses instead of your values, why would abundance remain in your hands? There is a difference between wealth and display. Display is loud. Wealth is quiet. Display demands attention. Wealth builds options. I have met individuals who drive impressive cars and carry constant anxiety because their lifestyle is financed by pressure. I have also met modest people whose balance sheets are strong and whose sleep is deep because their life is built on structure. Which one are you becoming? The fatal mistake is confusing visibility with value. In my community, I have seen families preserved for generations, not because they chased trends, but because they honored principles. They lived below their means. They invested patiently. They taught their children that money is a tool, not an identity. Family is the true legacy. Businesses can collapse, markets can shift, but if you raise people with integrity, you create continuity beyond any single deal. I have made painful mistakes in this area as well. There were seasons when I was physically present at home, but mentally negotiating transactions. My children would speak, and I would nod without listening. I justified it by saying I was building their future. One evening, one of them asked me a simple question about a school project, and I realized I did not even know the name of their closest friend. That moment pierced me more than any financial loss ever could. Prosperity without presence is poverty in disguise. From that day forward, I structured my schedule differently. I created sacred hours where business could not intrude. Ironically, my revenue increased after I set those boundaries. Why? Because clarity in one area strengthens discipline in another. Silence became one of my greatest strategies. Not silence of weakness, but silence of evaluation. Before responding to a proposal, I began to wait. Before reacting to criticism, I began to breathe. The space between stimulus and response is where fortune is either protected or destroyed. Emotional decisions burn capital. Calm decisions compound it. I have watched investors lose millions because they panicked during temporary downturns. I have watched patient individuals accumulate significant assets simply because they refused to be rushed by fear. The fatal mistake is believing that intensity equals effectiveness. True effectiveness is measured by consistency. You do not need dramatic moves. You need structured habits. Wake up at a defined hour. Review your numbers regularly. Speak honestly even when it costs you in the short term. Pay your obligations on time. Honor your commitments. These behaviors are not glamorous. They are foundational. A building does not collapse because of one loud storm. It collapses because its foundation was compromised long before the storm arrived. The same is true for your finances. When I counsel people who feel stuck, I rarely begin with investment advice. I ask about their routines. I ask about their relationships. I ask about their self-control. Prosperity with purpose requires alignment between your inner life and your external actions. If you live in contradiction, wealth will feel unstable in your hands. There was a period when I expanded too quickly into industries I did not fully understand. The numbers looked promising, the projections were impressive, but deep inside I sensed I was moving from ambition, not from clarity. I ignored that inner hesitation. Within 2 years I was forced to liquidate part of that expansion at a loss. It was not catastrophic, but it was unnecessary. The loss was a tuition payment for wisdom. Listen carefully. Not every opportunity is an assignment. Sometimes the most profitable decision is the one you decline. Silence before commitment is power. Reflection before signature is protection. The fatal mistake that pushes wealth away is saying yes to everything because you fear missing out. Abundance does not respond to desperation. It responds to discernment. I have sat across from individuals who spoke endlessly during negotiations, revealing their anxieties with every sentence. And I have seen seasoned leaders say very little, ask precise questions, and let the other party fill the silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is strategy. When you speak less, you observe more. When you observe more, you decide better. When you decide better, you protect your capital. This applies to family as well. Words spoken in anger can fracture trust that took years to build. Emotional spending can damage stability that required decades to establish. Discipline is love expressed through restraint. Responsibility is love expressed through planning. You want to know why you are not prosperous. Perhaps because you treat money as a reward instead of a responsibility. Perhaps because you spend to soothe emotions instead of solving problems. Perhaps because you seek shortcuts instead of systems. Systems build wealth. Excitement spends it. I remember a mentor once telling me that true prosperity is boring to the undisciplined mind. It is repetitive. It is structured. It requires saying no more often than yes. At the time, I resisted that idea. I wanted speed. I wanted dramatic growth. Now I understand. Slow construction creates strong walls. Rapid expansion without reinforcement creates cracks. Faith is not passive. It is practical. It influences how you sign contracts, how you treat employees, how you price your services, how you handle conflict. I have refused deals that were legally acceptable but morally questionable. In the short term, I sacrificed revenue. In the long term, I gained trust. Trust is a currency more stable than any market index. When people know your word is solid, opportunities find you without aggressive pursuit. Wealth built on compromise carries hidden costs. Wealth built on principle carries quiet confidence. Responsibility is not heavy when you accept it willingly. It becomes heavy only when you resist it. Many individuals ask for financial breakthrough while avoiding personal accountability. They blame circumstances, but they ignore habits. They criticize others, but they avoid self-examination. Let me ask you directly, are your daily actions aligned with the future you claim to desire? Do your expenses reflect your priorities? Does your calendar reflect your values? Or are you living reactively, chasing urgent matters while neglecting important foundations? The fatal mistake is fragmentation. A divided person cannot build integrated wealth. When your spiritual life teaches patience, but your financial life practices impulsiveness, you create internal conflict. Alignment creates momentum. I am not speaking as a theoretician. I have felt the anxiety of overextension. I have experienced the embarrassment of explaining losses that were preventable. I have rebuilt after miscalculations. Each reconstruction reinforced a simple truth. Prosperity is attracted to stability of character. When you become trustworthy with small responsibilities, larger responsibilities approach you naturally. When you demonstrate consistency in modest transactions, significant transactions feel less risky to others. Character is collateral. Integrity is leverage. Family is legacy. Money is a tool. Time is the field in which all of this grows. Do not curse the field if you refuse to cultivate it. Do not envy another harvest if you neglect your own seeds. The conclusion is not dramatic. It is clear. Build slowly. Decide calmly. Speak carefully. Spend intentionally. Invest patiently. Guard your relationships. Protect your name. Align your actions with your declared values. Pray with sincerity, but work with discipline. Seek wisdom more than applause. Choose legacy over ego. The fatal mistake that pushes wealth away is living without internal order and expecting external abundance to compensate for that disorder. It never will. Wealth amplifies what already exists. So refine what exists within you. Strengthen your discipline. Deepen your faith. Clarify your purpose and understand this final truth. Prosperity is not something you chase. It is something you become capable of sustaining. When your character is strong enough, when your structure is consistent enough, when your priorities are aligned enough, wealth no longer needs to be pursued aggressively. It recognizes a stable home and it stays.